Okay. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced, in honor of the one and only system admin of this world room, the original unconditional moment that conditions have arisen from and will return to. Hello, everyone. Today's lecture is a research-oriented lecture. It is also for my own expansion. It's also serving the expansion of my own horizons. And it should be audible. Why? Yeah, yeah. So the viewers should be able to hear. Let me just double check. Okay, so it is audible. Let me know how it is. This is a new microphone. It should be great. The sound quality. If it isn't, I have no idea why, and I need to figure it out. So please let me know. All right. So in today's lecture, I was, I often talk about the contrast between ontology and epistemology. And epistemology is how we know things, and in some sense, ontology is like what is real, what is actually real. And so, as a human being on this planet, I have reached the conclusion that the way we were explained our human intelligence was the best they could do. You can't really blame the past. Even if the past is inefficient or ignorant or whatever, you just look at the past and you're like, oh. So I'm not going to blame civilization 1.0, the current civilization I'm in, because it's not a matter of blame, it's a matter of every soul's responsibility over their sector of manifestation. By realizing where their ability arises from to be able to even respond to consciousness. Okay, and in my view, there's layers to reality, and in some sense, just like a box, when somebody gives you a gift, that box requires to be opened. You know? So this contrast between ontology and epistemology, I've simplified it when I say that human beings in front of their eyes access a public, objective server. Okay, I believe this whole system is an existential system, a simulated system. I also believe it's a divine surveillance thing. I also know that there is a system admin, and I know that there are mods. And before 2023, I was working with three mods when I was giving these lectures. So it occurred to me that I used this metaphor in a previous lecture. Just like how back in the day there was blacksmith, okay, and they would get a sword and they would put it on an anvil and they would hammer it out, and the science behind it would be that it's parallel to the electromagnetic field of the. So in the same way, I find human beings, free will is the hammer, the world is the anvil. You can see different. The world is the anvil, you are the soul, and every experience you have is like the hammer or mine. Either the hammer is hitting the sword properly or it isn't. So I went up to AI for this. So I was curious to see, okay, how do I, you know, I felt like, okay, let me see what the information is before humans like interpret its implication, right? It occurred to me that, all right, man, let me see what are global statistics. We have AI right now. It's at the tip of our fingertips. And so I have asked ChatGPT 5.2. I'm going to start with the research component. This lecture is more informational. Reading, reading information, specifically this lecture. I will share my views overall of that. And so let's dive into it. These are statistics that are going to probably, I haven't read all of them, you know, I've brushed over them, but I haven't read them. And these statistics may change our emotion of what sort of future humanity is heading, what is actually happening. Because, as I said, in front of your eyes, you access a public objective server. Behind your eyes, you access a private, personal, private, subjective server. Okay, every person, every human being that we have seen, every human being we have seen is living two lives. They're living a life behind their eyes that, in some sense, directs the life outside of their eyes. And we are designed and we are positioned, I would say, in a strangely, intentionally incomplete place. That means if the world is incomplete and the self is a rose in this world, if we can't completely understand the world, how can we expect to completely understand the self? You know what I mean? So it's an incomplete position. We human beings are trying to complete our lives. It's very important. So to continue, okay, guys, to continue now. Okay, so like I guess um, okay, the most important statistics about humanity. AI has generated around 22. I will take the time to read all of them. So we start. One, the most important statistics about humanity, why they are happening, and what they mean for the future. And guys, I personally find that the value of information is not to identify with that information, but to use it. I have this view that a person if a person uses a tool long enough, imagine you're just holding a sword in your hand for so long. After some point, you feel like that sword is an extension of your hand. And if you identify that sword as part of your body, it's an error. Okay, for example. So, first statistic: humanity will stop growing and then shrink. What is happening? Human population will peak around 10.3 billion and then begin declining. Why this is happening? Education, especially of women, delays childbirth. Cities make children expensive. Modern life prioritizes careers, freedom, and stability over family size. Survival no longer requires large families. This means imagine this future: fewer young people supporting many old people, labor shortages everywhere, immigration becoming a survival strategy for nations, societies becoming cautious, slow, and preservation focused. Humanity moves from expansion mode to maintenance mode. So the first statistic, and guys, I don't know why it said a year. I don't know why it didn't say the year. All right, guys. Sorry, give me a second. It had given a better answer. I asked the prompt to polish the answer. In regards to like adding more info to it, like a deeper explanation to it. Okay, okay. There we go. It gave a better answer. Okay. So one, human population will peak then decline by the year 2080 to 2085. So what is happening? Global population is projected to peak at an estimate of 10.3 billion, then slowly decline. And I read this, why this is happening. Fewer children per family, urbanization, education, and cost of living shift away from survival-based reproduction. This means, imagine this future: aging societies, labor shortages, immigration as necessity, slower, more fragile economies. So global fertility collapse already happening, ongoing since 1970. What is happening? Fertility dropped from an estimated 5 births per woman in 1960s to currently an estimate of 2.3 today. Okay, why this is happening? Children are expensive, housing insecurity, career prioritization, cultural detachment from parenthood. That means society is pretty much, instead of phasing it out, I think that children are, in some sense, they're extending one phase to, in some sense, overshadow a necessary phase for humanity. And I do understand that the younger generations, guys, the amount of intensity they can confront is very different. you know that means, like, maybe back in the day, it was a woman's purpose purely to, in some sense, raise uh, great human beings in the world, to bring human beings into the world. But now there are so many other purposes there, and some of these purposes has become personal, and so really, I think the major reason, why men all over the world respect women, okay, is because they are the most critical element. They are the portals to existence, do you know? And so the point of it being 5 births, that means, like, woman had 5 kids, now it's like around two. That means the society, that means the way civilization has advanced, okay, it has made it harder to bring human beings into this world, more human beings into this world. And because and of course there's a reason, because they told everybody overpopulation, little, and everybody forgot the fact that the earth is giant, and we can even build sky cities in the future, and have vertical access, and we can even become interplanetary, you know or even interstellar cities, right? So this argument of, overpopulation is BS. We need as many human DNAs, as many perspectives to the human condition as possible. And the most important thing is to be able to assimilate, be able to access those perspectives. 3. So the first one was human population will peak by 2080 to 2085, then decline. It's going to peak to 10.3 billion. Second, another important statistic is global fertility collapse after 1970s. Just people, and it's obvious because their attention is more occupied by their personal expansion rather than bringing another person into this world. You know, an unsatisfied person will, or let me say it this way, um, it's equivalent to, like, this. That means, imagine, there's a table filled with food, okay, and one person comes and eats it, not realizing that, in some sense, that food is meant for many. So I'm saying, like, it's kind of like you eat a little bit and then you leave, and then the next person comes and eats. Do you know what I mean? You don't just hog, like, what's the term? Like, you don't just take everything. Do you know? Or try to eat as much as you can. That's very unclassy, but also, of course, depends on the condition of the person. If you're on the brink of death, eat as much as you want. 3. We go to the third statistic. Humanity is aging rapidly. By when? 2050. What is happening? 22% of humans will be over 60 years old by 2050. So let me tell you what that number is, because there's 8.1 billion right now. So we need 22% of, I think I can even do it. Okay, whatever. 8.1 billion. It is, what is it? It is 1,782,000,000 humans will be above the age 60 by the year 2050. Okay. Why this is happening: medical longevity, fewer births, chronic lifestyle diseases replacing early death. This means, imagine this future. Healthcare dominates economies, youth becomes rare and powerful, politics skew toward older populations. Wow. Wow. Guys, think of it this way. Can I make a point here? What this is saying is that, think of it, that there was a point in history where the average lifespan was 25 years old. Okay? Now, like a 25-year-old, is the, that's honestly a good time to get married. Get married when you're younger, you know so you're not old for your kids. So imagine there was a politician, there was a dictator back in the day. That dictator would only live would have a lifespan of the age 25. Okay, for 25 years they would have tyranny over something. And after 25 years, then the new generations would come. So now the point of this is also, it's hilarious. It's like bad ideas and also good ideas of older times are lingering longer, pretty much 40 more years. And this is not a per se a bad statistic, but it's bad if we allow only this. How do I say it? It's like, I have this view that, when I get old, it's like the younger generation's turn. you know and if an old person is occupying a position where a younger person can come and do a better job, then that is in some sense an error of ego. So humanity is aging rapidly. By 2050, 22% of humans will be over 60 years old. We go to the fourth statistic: humans becoming a city species. By when? By 2050. What is happening? An estimate of 68% of humans will live in cities. Why this is happening? Jobs centralized in cities, rural economies collapse, infrastructure concentration. This means, imagine this future: permanent housing crises, megacities control nations, urban stress and density conflicts. And it's funny because, I mean, on some level we don't have that much. I think if we have an evolution in transport, then things will become different. For example, flying cars. If we have flying cars, then how would I explain it to her? Or even we get to a point in the far future where we figure out teleportation. So that's interesting. That means less and less people are living in the natural world. And all human beings, it's like, yo, man, we have this unnatural game going on called human civilization, you know? And so 68% of humans will live in cities. We go to the fifth statistic. Humanity splits into connected versus disconnected. And it says by now, 2024 to 2025. I mean, we're in 2026 now. It says what is happening. An estimate of 22.3 billion humans remain offline. Oh my God.
2.3 billion humans remain offline. We're 8.1 billion people, guys. We're 8.1 billion. Imagine we got to 8.3 billion. That's 6 billion human beings are online right now. So we are seeing this ridiculous shift into a cyber reality. In the same way when human beings learned language, communication, reading, and writing, they all ran towards that technology. So it's very obvious that human beings are being drawn to the most shiny thing. You know, why this is happening: infrastructure inequality, poverty, political instability. This means, imagine this future: cognitive inequality. Wow. AI enhanced humans versus excluded humans. Whoa. New class system based on intelligence access. But you know what the downside of this is? If they put a chip in your brain, okay, what have they done, guys? I was there at the beginning of the internet. I was there when there was dial up internet. Okay, I was alive before, you know? And I can tell you that creating a website back in the day was so easy. Do you understand? I hadn't created, but I remember seeing my uncle create one, right? And so what happened? They monetized everything. They realized the business plan can extend to the depths of the activity. Do you understand? So imagine in the future they put a chip in your brain and they give you very advanced. They expand your IQ by, let's say, 10 points. Okay, which is a lot. Let's say by 10 or 20 points. Okay, and they give you that, but you don't have control over your intelligence. And think of the privacy policy of your own brain. Do you know? And imagine that if you don't make a payment, for example, right, they're going to be like, sorry, we're going to, in some sense, reduce your IQ, do you know, because you didn't make your payments on time, right? And when your IQ is reduced, you can't compete in the workforce of that future. And of course, labor would be automated by then, but you understand what I mean. So this is very huge. Right now, 2.3 billion humans remain offline, and I will tell you that there's a middle gap here. There's offline humans, there's online humans, okay, and there's those in the middle who can create a bridge. So in some sense, the 2.3 billion humans that remain offline, okay, the online ones need to go, and in some sense they need to share their natural experiences. There's, for me personally, it's so bizarre. Okay, I was born in 91, and I will tell you the quality of products has in some sense changed. The quality of visual effects have changed in cinema and in film. Everything has kind of been dulled down because I think they want to sell more of it. So they sacrifice the quality so they can sell more, and that is devastating. That's one thing about capitalism, that, like, you fools, you're so fascinated by your own victory that you don't realize your own victory could be at the cost of the victory of your great grandchildren who you're building that generational wealth for. Whoever's working. Do you know? Then we go to 6: permanent mass displacement. What it says by now? 2024 to 2025. What is happening? 100, an estimate of 123 million humans are forcibly displaced. Why this is happening? Wars without resolution. Shame on the world leaders currently. Your wars don't have resolutions, and you guys break things, break the world for your, for what? The ego of nations destroying the planet. It says why this is happening: wars without resolution, climate stress, failing states. This means, imagine this future: migration normalized, borders harden, citizenship becomes privilege. I remember reading this thing that I think it was by the year 2070 that the country of Vietnam, for example, the water levels are going to rise. As the water levels rise, what happens? Mass migration happens. When people can't live in one nation, they require to go somewhere else. When there's mass migration, okay, it leads to societal instability. That means governments can't control their nations because nations have a certain identity. When there's mass immigration, obviously that identity over time integrates. Okay, do you know? Think of it this way. This is such a weird analogy, but think of it as like a flask filled with chemicals. Do you know? And so it depends which chemical. It also depends on the elements, but I'm telling you, it's pretty much what is there more of that can influence more than the other things that there's less of. You know, I have this feeling that eventually we will reach the realization this world is an unconditional moment. But we are conditional beings, so it's a very far. Anyways, God knows. Let's continue. 7. Poverty reduction has stalled. Since 2015, an estimate of 700 million people remain in extreme poverty. So 700 million is what percent of 8.1 billion? 8%, around 8.6%, around let's round it up. 9% of the human species is living in extreme poverty, and this is not acceptable for a species destined for an advanced civilization, for an advanced reality. Why this is happening? Easy gains already made, remaining poverty tied to conflict and climate, growth alone no longer solves it. This means imagine this future: persistent inequality, political anger, ideological radicalization. 8. Energy transition accelerating. By when? 2030s critical decade. What is happening? 92% of new power capacity, an estimate of 92% of new power capacity 2024 was renewable. Solar, why this is happening? Solar and wind, cheapest energy, government mandates, fossil fuel decline economics. This means imagine this future. Everything electrified, grid failures, national crises, energy infrastructure equals power. That's the thing. All these nations, like, you know how nations need food, like people need food? Nations need power, right? They need energy to maintain their economies, to maintain their civilization, their civilizational stance. It says 9, climate becomes a hard constraint. By the year 2030 to 2040, I have no idea what this means. It says only an estimate of 500 GT CO2 left for a 50% chance at 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so it says climate becomes a hard constraint. By 2030, climate change stops being something we argue about and starts being something that physically limits what humans can do. Not opinions, not politics, limits. What's happening? There's only about 500, oh, gigatons, yeah. There's only about 500 gigatons of CO2 left that humanity can emit if we want even a 50 chance of keeping global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius. At today's rate, we burn through that budget very fast. Once it's gone, it's gone. So, guys, look at how bizarre this is. Oh my God. Oh my God. So we have a threshold, like we can have only around 500 gigatons of CO2, to emit without with there still being a 50-50 chance of keeping global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius. Here, I'm going to ask it what happens if it goes above 1.5. Nothing snaps instantly, but the world becomes progressively harder, less stable, and more expensive to live in. Every fraction above 1.5 degrees Celsius multiplies risk. What 1.5 degree Celsius actually is, it's not a safety line. It's the point after which damage accelerates faster than our ability to adapt. Think 1.5 degree Celsius equals manageable but strained. 2 degrees Celsius equals system stress. 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius equals system failure zone. Wow, I hadn't thought about it this way, that the dangers of the temperature of the planet, yo. The planets become, if the planet is could overheat because of capitalism, yo. All right, to continue. Excuse me. Coffee's too hot to drink. We go to 10. Wildlife collapse. Since 1970s to now, what is happening? An estimated 73% decline in vertebrate wildlife populations. So vertebrate wildlife means and beings that have organisms that have backbones, not like jellyfish and all that. Why this is happening: habitat destruction, industrial agriculture, pollution. This means imagine this future: artificial ecosystems, engineered pollination, nature becomes managed. Oh my god, I'm seeing a pattern here, guys. Humanity seems to be destined for, like, we should want technology to advance faster and faster. Wow. We go to 11. Mental health crises at species scale. By now, it says 2020s. So, what is happening? 1 billion human beings live with mental health disorders. That means 1/8 of the species. So 12. So 12.3% of the human species suffers from mental health disorders. Wow. Wow. I didn't think it was. And you know what that means? That means 12% of our species, of the human species, is suffering internally to the degree that how can they contribute to their outer realms? Why this is happening? Overstimulation, isolation, meaning collapse, mismatch with modern life. This means imagine this future: therapy normalized, AI companions rise. I've seen this, talked about it in my sci-fi. Psychological resilience becomes survival skill. We go to the 12th statistic: antibiotic resistance, critical by the year 2030 to 2050. What is happening? 1 point, an estimate of 1.27 million deaths per year directly from resistant infections. Why this is happening: antibiotic overuse, slow drug development, rapid bacterial evolution. This means imagine this future: routine infections become lethal, surgery risk increases, medicine regresses selectively. So here's a better explanation of it. By 2030 to 2050, many infections we currently treat as minor stop being reliably curable. Wow. Not because medicine forgot how, but because bacteria adapted faster than we did. Oh my god. Oh my god. I had never thought about bacteria adapting faster than our immune system. That's crazy. I thought more people would be interested in this episode, but it seems not the case. About 1.27 million people already die each year directly because of antibiotics no longer work on their infections. So guys, I would say if you have a natural remedy to heal yourself, but don't be ignorant of the medical practices wisdom. We go to number 13, attention span collapse since 2000 to now. What is happening? Average attention dropped from an estimate of 12 seconds to an estimate of 8 seconds. Why this is happening? Algorithmic feeds, dopamine overload, constant interruption. This means imagine this future. Deep thinkers become rare. Power concentrates in focused minds. Wow. That means the future generations are their ability to concentrate is reducing. So just those people who can concentrate are ahead. Crazy. We go to 14, most human knowledge unread by humans. And it says by now 2020s. What is happening? Most data is processed only by machines. Data volume explosion, AI intermediaries. This means imagine this future. Humans trust systems blindly, reality becomes mediated. That means instead of us accessing the knowledge and making a decision, we will probably have technology processing the information and giving us the options to choose from, which is which is very convenient and probably luxurious, but is not the best for the species, it seems. 15, humans sleeping less. Since industrial era to now, what is happening? Average sleep down by 1 to 2 hours versus pre-industrial humans. Why this is happening? Screens, artificial light, 24/7 economy. This means imagine this future, cognitive decline, emotional instability, burnout, normalization. This next one's next crazy. The next one is sperm count and testosterone decline. Since the 1970s, male reproductive health has been quietly weakening. In many regions, average sperm counts have dropped by about 50%, and testosterone levels are trending downward too. This isn't about individuals failing, it's about the environment humans built. It says more men have lower sperm counts, poorer sperm quality, lower testosterone, reduced fertility earlier in life, often without obvious symptoms until they try to have children. Why this is happening? Plain version, plastics. Many plastics release hormone disrupting chemicals that interfere with reproductive systems. Pollutants, air, water, food, and industrial chemicals subtly affect hormones over long exposure. Stress, chronic stress suppresses testosterone and disrupts reproductive signaling. Sedentary life, less movement, more sitting, poor sleep, and metabolic issues all reduce fertility. I mean, it's obvious, guys. We are way more less active because we're way more. Our attention is way more on, like, we've been ushered into the information age, right? So our bodies are moving less because we're more still and processing information. We're moving more in our minds than our bodies. And this is something I wish I knew earlier. I'd have a different attitude to sports and exercise. But I don't. But I think I'm healthy. I fast a lot. Maybe that helps. It says none of these alone collapse. Together they compound. Then we go to the next one. Collapse of institutional trust. It says by the 2020s, people stopped assuming that big institutions act in their best interests. Governments, media, corporations, universities. Credibility is no longer automatic. What's happening? Public trust in major institutions is at historic lows across many countries. People don't necessarily believe the opposite, they just don't believe by default anymore. Why this is happening? Visible corruption, broken promises, internet transparency. The internet exposes contradictions between what institutions say and what they do. That means, this might mean the end of capitalism. What is this? If people don't trust their institutions, then they will only be forced to trusting the necessary institutions for their survival. And that means if there is an actual accurate and good institution, people are assuming more that they're distrusting institutions more than trusting them. And of course there's manipulation everywhere, but if we can't trust our institutions, then what sort of civilization are we building? We go to 18, synthetic chemical exposure. By the 2020s, humans are living inside, it's 2026, but it says humans are living inside a vast, uncontrolled chemical experiment. Over 100,000 synthetic chemicals now circulate through the air, water, food, clothing, packaging, and consumer products. Most were never tested for long-term combined effects of the human body. So guys, you know what this means? This means that if you've seen in sci-fi movies, like they have suits and they're walking normally, that's what's going to happen. We need to personally um, so think of it this way: if you can't breathe the air outside, then it's like we're going to be scuba diving on land. And it says over 100,000 synthetic chemicals now circulate through air, water, food, clothing, packaging, and consumer products. Most were never tested for long-term combined effects of the human body. Man, capitalism, I'm not against capitalism, but I'm against its ignorance. People are trying to win in their own lifetime at the cost of the lifetimes of all the other human beings that will arrive on this planet. I am starting to realize, guys, we need AI. We need AI. AI is going to be one of the most crucial chess pieces of human civilization, of the advancement of human, of the maintenance of humanity. If I didn't have AI, I wouldn't have the time to go and check all these statistics, you know? What's happening? Small amounts of many different chemicals enter our bodies every day. Individually, each may seem safe. Together, over decades, the effects are uncertain and cumulative. Why this is happening? Industry outspaced regulation. Chemicals were developed and released faster than governments could study or regulate them. Wow. Man, civilization's not living efficiently, guys. This it's not classy. We're classier souls than this. It's the second, it says safety testing often focuses on short-term toxicity, not lifelong exposure mixtures. Of course, because if somebody wants to, let's say, sell a chemical, right, that they have an abundance of, like from a business perspective, right, they're going to be like, yo man, quickly get the certification, see if this is okay. And they're going to do short-term testing. The dude's not going to wait like 70 years and then be like, okay, the chemical I want to commercialize is okay. You know, it's like the person's going to be dead by then, right? So capitalism has left no choice. Actually, not capitalism, it's just the way exists the position is in existence is we don't have the time to know the long to do the research to do the study of the long-term effects. So short-term effects are just being analyzed and then the products being passed on, I guess. We go to number 19, externalized memory. By the 2020s, humans stopped storing much of their knowledge inside their own minds. Instead, we stored it in phones, cloud accounts, search engines, and apps. Yeah, guys, when I was young, the amount of phone numbers I had memorized was like ridiculous. Do you know? But now it's maybe like three or four, you know? Back in the day they had phone books, yo. You know, your parents would be like, go get the phone book. You know, and then Steve Jobs was like, I'm gonna put this phone book in the iPad, man. Everything I see in my house, I'm gonna put in my phone. You know? It's like I had a calendar on the wall, that's going in my phone. You know, I had a wallet, that's going in my phone. You know, everything's going on gone inside the phone. Steve Jobs was that, like, not just Steve Jobs, all those people who went towards that you know, smartphone technology, you know, that's what they did. You know, they wanted to, in some sense, change the hassle. They wanted to save time, but they didn't realize at what cost they're saving time. But I think overall, technology serves technology. So people in tech, they don't realize it. I think they are serving a sort of technological oversoul. But that's the oversoul is not God. God is God is think of it as the oversoul of all manifestation. But God is beyond even the definition of a soul. God is the unconditional original moment of being before the world was a condition. And from the original we have come, and to the simulated, and from the simulated we return to the original. So from the original back to the original. It says why this is happening. Convenience. It is easier to look things up than memorize them. So guys, I'm going to tell you something fascinating. There was some Greek dude, I don't remember his name. In ancient Greece, they had these, like, stone column house, like, buildings. There is a story that is a testament to the memory people had back in the day. Evidently, the ceiling of one of these buildings, there was like a party or a gathering or something, and the ceiling of the building falls down, and everybody in that event dies, and they can't even see who died. But there was some dude that had stepped out in that moment, and that dude with visual photographic memory could tell everybody who was there, that was in some sense had died there in that tragic incident. You understand? They had such next level photographic memory to the degree that I remember, I think it was Plato. Plato was against, like, yo, man, stop writing things down, stop recording things, that which in some sense, we naturally remember, we're unnaturally preserving. Do you know what I mean? He was against writing. In the same way Marshall McLuhan was against the newspaper, you know? Few more left, guys, and we'll be done here. Number 20, decline of close friendships. What this actually means. Since the 1990s, people have been having fewer deep, close friendships, even while being more connected than ever. Social contact is increased, intimacy is decreased. A reason for this is because people have more information, so they can disagree more, but they don't have the emotional maturity to not take it personally. So when they take it personally, then in some sense you can see. This is what I've understood. Somebody once said, if you want a friend that is flawless, Attar said this. Attar of Nishapur, this Persian poet from like 900 years ago. He said, if you want a friend that is flawless, you would be friendless. Some poet had said that. I think it's that guy. You know, and what it means is that the only way your friend is flawless if they are based on your inner realm expectation. That means you are not a true friend if your friend didn't meet your expectations. You're a true friend if you care for another soul regardless of their performance, you know, regardless of your view on them. To me, this is, I mean, it's difficult. People make you angry, and you in some sense tell them to F off. But at the same time, you know, it's disconnection is easier than connection. Disconnection requires one action, but the trust of connection requires a series of actions over time. You know, What's happening? Many adults now report one close friend or none at all. Whoa. This isn't because people don't want connection, it's because modern life erodes the conditions that create it. Mobility. People move cities, countries, and careers frequently. Long term bonds struggle to form. Digital substitution, messaging, likes, and feeds imitate connection without requiring depth or presence. Work pressure, time, energy, and emotional bandwidth are consumed by survival and productivity. No single cause breaks friendship, their combination does. I honestly know that people, because they are more impatient, even we just read like earlier that their attention span is reduced. It's like you're looking at the human species become more emotional, become more impatient, become more assuming, like distrusting the outer realms and just trusting their own inner realms, not realizing the inner realms is only the meaning that has found them, from within them. And it says what this means in real life: loneliness epidemics, which AI companionship, it says, is a result of. That's not real companionship. But AI does help. I've had maybe last year, I had some like an existential crisis panic attack, and I did some sort of like, I asked AI to in some sense, I kind of like used AI as a therapist in that moment, and it really helped me. And it told me one thing that honestly, like, it saved my moment in that moment, saved my life in that moment. Actually, it told me it's okay if you don't have all the answers. And so many people, they might think, they have to have all the answers, and their psyche is in a stressed environment. We go to the next one. 21, childhood shrinking. By the 2020s, childhood has become shorter. So these statistics are from there, I'm assuming, because it looks online. So it says childhood has become shorter. Children are exposed to adult level stress, information, and expectations much earlier than previous generations. What's happening? Kids deal with social comparison, performance pressure, global crises, adult themes, and conflict before they've had time to fully develop emotional resilience. And it says why this is happening: internet exposure. Children now see unfiltered adult worlds, conflict, sexuality, violence, status anxiety, and outrage. Academic pressure. Childhood play is replaced early with testing, competition, and future oriented stress. This isn't about kids being weaker, it's about timing being wrong. What this means in real life: emotionally unfinished adults. People reach adulthood with underdeveloped emotional regulation, difficulty with intimacy, fragile self-worth, because key developmental stages were rushed. Maturity in knowledge increases, maturity in emotional grounding lags. So you can't, it says, what an interesting sentence. It says the core idea: development can't be accelerated without cost. Wow, that's so true. I've tried to develop this project, I've tried to accelerate it to reach the 10,000, and it's had a cost. Fascinating. Final, one final statistic. Humans indoors 90% of the time. Wow, humans are indoors 90% of the time. By now, in the modern era, what is happening? Humans spend 90% of life indoors. Why this is happening? Urban living, screen based work, climate control dependency. Exactly. It say okay. It says it. These final sentence summary. These numbers are not random. Not summary. Final sentence is that these numbers are not random. They describe a species moving from biological instinct into to technological dependence, from expansion to fragility, and from unconscious growth to a forced moment of maturity. Guys, I know, I know, this is the work of some strategist, and this strategist gained its victory, an unethical strategist. It succeeded in making humans depend on technology. Now the problems we have will be solved by technology, can be only solved by next level technology. And think of it, what's happening. An animal was in. So, guys, I finished reading the research component. Now I'm going to say a few things before I end off. So, think of it this way: the earliest human beings were still in the food chain, they were living in nature, they were reliant on their biological instincts purely for their decision making. As we went forward, so what were the ages? I mean, I'm probably missing some in between, but we had the nomad age where people were just roaming around, they weren't settled. Then we had the agricultural age. After the agricultural age, we had the industrial age, and the industrial age ushered people to come and live in the same place and work in the same place. That ushered in the urbanization age. As the industrial age and urbanization age occurred, technology, as the technology increased, we moved into the informational age. That means human beings are less reliant on their biological instincts and more processing reality through information and analysis. Okay, so this in itself is not a natural act, because our natural was something else. So what does this imply? This implies that if we see history as a sine wave, there's going to be a from a technological informational age, there's going to be an archaic revival into a natural age. But whether that natural age will be in cyberspace or not, I don't know. Do you know what that means? I'll give you an example. Right now, in this, in let's say in this timeline, okay, in this world, we can't go back to being like those humans, early primitive human beings that lived in nature. We have been exposed to information, okay. But imagine this argument, that they say it's it's one view of the simulation hypothesis, where they're saying that technology will advance to such a degree that it will become indistinguishable from reality. If technology is indistinguishable from reality, that technology then can completely revert into nature. So I'm pretty much saying in a natural world, we were natural beings, and in that natural world we're becoming unnatural beings because we've created an unnatural world in the natural world. Now the archaic revival may be in the unnatural world. So that means there's gonna be children who they might not even. I wrote a chapter on this in my science fiction. Okay, I called it Legends of the Lost Children of Cyberspace. So what it means is that these children will be born, but they will not realize their body exists in the natural world. Their consciousness will simulate. Do you understand? So they will have a virtual reality experience of themselves being born and growing, but their body could be like, I don't know. I'll give you an example. In the far future, I've written about this. In the far future, parents can go to a doctor, right? And the doctor's like, all right, parents, what are your plans for your kids? And the parents are like, okay, we want our child, by the age of, let's say, 5, 10, by the age, like for 10 years, the child's going to be in some like matrix, like capsule pod or nutrition pod, something that preserves its life force. And its body is going to just be in a pod in the outer realms, in the natural world, but its mind is going to be born in the unnatural world as a natural being. That's what I'm trying to say. In other words, the unnatural in the far future could become the natural, and then they're going to be like, yo, is it a simulation? What was before? And it's going to, we can even think the same thing happened to us. So anyways, folks, thank you for listening. These statistics are important because sometimes we don't have access to, collective information. All right, guys. So we looked over 22 statistics. I'm going to go over them very quickly. One, global population peaks at 10.3 billion by 2080 to 2085. Two, global fertility rate, an estimate of 2.3 births per woman, down from an estimate of 5 already from 1960s to 2020s. 22% of humanity over age 60 to 2050. 20% of 22% of humanity will be over age 60 by 2050. 68% of humanity will be living in cities by the year 2050. 71% of humanity will be online, and 29%, around 22.3 billion, are offline. This is current 2020. Current, it says 2024 to 2025. These statistics, like 2026 statistics, haven't come out yet, right? So, 100, an estimate of 123 million people forcibly displaced worldwide. 700. This is current to present, like from 2024 to present. Not from then, but it's saying like the statistics was. It's saying currently. 700 million, an estimate of 700 million people in extreme poverty, stalled since 2015. 92% of new global power capacity from renewables. 500 gigatons of CO2 remaining for an estimate of 1.5 degrees Celsius, 50% chance. Budget critical by 2030 to 2040. 73% decline in vertebrate wildlife populations. 1970 to present. 1 billion people living with mental health disorders. Wow. 1 billion people living with mental health disorders. This is current. 1.27 million deaths per year from antimicrobial resistance, 2029 to present. Critical by 2030 to 2050. Average attention span estimate of 8 seconds, down from 12 seconds from 2000 to present. Majority of newly generated data unread by humans, 2020. It's it's saying average human sleep reduced by 1 to 2 hours versus pre-industrial. Um, yeah, versus pre-industrial. So from the industrial area to present, people are sleeping. Oh my god, 2 hours less. 50% decline in sperm counts in many regions, 1970s to present. Historic lows in trust in governments, media institutions. 1,800,000 synthetic chemicals in global circulation. Human memory increasingly externalized to devices. It says 2020s average number of close friendships per person declining from 1990s to present. Earlier exposure of children to adult level stress. Humans spend 90% of their time indoors. Okay, guys, this. All right, so you know, all right. So, folks, thank you for listening. Um, I've posted the stats in the description. It is important for us to be aware of that which is beyond us, to properly govern that which is us, which is as us, which is being us now. To be, it's not enough to just be responsible for the past and the present. One must be responsible for the future. And once you're responsible for the future, it makes living in the present easier for all of us. So I guess that's the point to take away. We must care for the future. We must be able to probabilize and see ahead before we, you know, deny the human species its birthright, which is to be the most advanced civilization in the cosmos. God willing. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced.